This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joire.
Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joire, and today is Wednesday, October 9th, 2019. My guest is Florence Ion. Hi, Flo. How are you?
Hi, Miriam. How are you? I haven't talked to you in so long.
I know. I'm so glad you're back on the show. This is great.
I'm so glad to be back.
We've got a lot of little itty-bitty news this week compared to like last week's big Microsoft news and stuff. But hey, you know, itty-bitty news is good because there's some of it that's a little heavy in there we're going to cover. But overall, it's been a quiet week. Where have you been with your phone usage lately? What's your daily? What you doing?
Okay, so I'm still on the Pixel 3 right now. I'm going to, as you can hear, I'm a little congested. So I came down with a cold, which has kept me not wanting to deal with anything except what I need to deal with. No.
Well, thanks for still being on the show.
I just meant that I have a OnePlus 7T waiting for me right now, right here next to me. And I'm trying to jump on that because I just want to like use it, test it out, get into the gaming. But I just haven't, hasn't been a priority just yet.
Obviously. Yeah.
So.
It's a great phone. I got it under embargo, reviewed it for Geekspin for Elena's publication, and of course had a little unboxing action for my own YouTube channel. We discussed it on the show 2 weeks ago with David and Mel. Really amazing phone. I think the camera is going to probably be a little worse than what you're used to on Pixel, at least the main camera, because it's nice.
I'm ready for it.
You get the versatility of the other cameras, which is, sometimes versatility trumps quality if that's what you're looking for. So this is about the same in my experience as the 7 Pro was, which, as you know, was a major milestone in camera performance for OnePlus.
My husband is using that one because he's my guinea pig.
Oh yeah.
So I will put a phone in his hands, which also he gets to benefit from that. And I'm very impressed with the ability, like his ability to get good photos out of any phone that I give him. I feel he's very good. He's very good at that. He's good at framing. He's good at handling all the settings. Like he's much better at that than I am. And so I'm always like, wow, you got that out of that? Like, impressive.
I'm that person too. Like, passersby sometimes give me their phone to take a photo. Like, I'm at some being a tourist at something somewhere because I'm taking a day off after my whatever conference that I've got flown to. Or they ask me, or I ask them, I say, hey, do you need a hand? Do you want me to take a photo of you guys? And I do it, and they're like, holy crap, this is so great. And I'm like, yeah, I just held the phone and framed the shot, okay? Like, yes. I mean, I think people don't do that though, Flo, right?
No.
Right?
Yeah, this happens to me. People will be like, hi, can you take a picture? Because I like to hike. And so there's a lot of vistas, and we're going on a nice hike. And so people will be like, can you take a picture of us? And I'll take a couple of photos and they'll be like, wow, these are like Instagram worthy. And I'm like, you're welcome. I just tapped to focus. Did you forget you need to do that?
Yeah, sometimes it's a good idea. Sometimes I don't even bother. It's like I can look in the viewfinder. I'm like, that doesn't look overexposed. It looks in focus. Done. But most phones today are pretty smart about that too. I really love the face tracking on a lot of phones, or object tracking in general, where if you have a moving object, you tap on it and it keeps tracking it, and it keeps the exposure and focus on that object, which is really great if you have moving kids and stuff.
Can I bring up something just kind of somber, but I promise it's related.
Sure. Tangents are encouraged, even somber ones.
Yes. So we lost our cat a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. I'm so sorry. My condolences about your cutie.
15 years, it's hard.
I know
when
it's
you
rough.
spend 15 years with an animal. But the thing that I really appreciate is, I'm missing her, but I have so many high quality like shots and videos of her. You could see the quality has increased over the years with her, depending on what, I was using. But I'm so thankful for just all of that footage. And because I didn't have that when I was younger with the pets that I had as a kid. And like to be an adult and to be able to have that and just say like, I miss your purring. So I'm going to go into a video that I have of you like purring, I'm very thankful that that's where our phones are now because, they always say, we always write, like, the phone that's in your pocket is the best phone. Yeah. And it's true. It's like, use it. If you have loved ones around you, use it.
You know, it's funny because we just did a tangent of a tangent because
Yes.
we're not even on the topics yet.
No.
Don't worry, it's fine. I just think it's funny because, you know, the OnePlus 7T is a great phone, and that was our first tangent. Then we talked about cutie cats.
Yes.
But hey, you know, you'll be happy with that phone. I think I'm just saying to you, like, you know, if you're a Pixel user like I am as my daily driver, yes, you will find like night mode isn't quite, you know, it's good, but it's not like what we're used to. And
Yes.
and that's annoying if that's what you're looking for. But if you like the fact that, yes, you can have a wide angle, yes, you can have albeit problematic if you read my review, telephoto, it's there, it does the job. In some cases, it's really nice to have. So, you know, and the performance on this phone, I mean, Flo, it's hard to explain because the 7 Pro doesn't even hold a candle to it. Like the combination of Android 10 and 855 Plus, all optimized by OnePlus. I have never felt a phone this fast in my life. It's uncannily fast.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited. I do a lot of production on the Pixel 3 actually, and I know it's like mostly social media production, but
it's a challenge. My Pixel 3 drives me nuts. Half the time it kills apps in the background, and I'm just like, what
Yes.
the fuck? I was in the middle of typing a tweet, and you killed Twitter. Like,
Yes.
hello, and you didn't back it up, of course, because now
And
I
I'm-
lost my tweet.
And I'm also like one of those people who will watch like 90 Day Fiance while I'm doing, you know, I'll have like the picture in picture from
my God,
YouTube
yeah.
TV, and then, you know, like be doing stuff in the background because it's just, that's how I use my phone. And I would like to be able to do that without missing a beat of what's going on with these people who are trying to marry each other for visas. Anyway.
Right. So back to the topics a little bit.
Yes.
I was gonna say there are 2 phones that I didn't list in my topics that are
Okay.
phones that have been in my pocket that are really interesting, that kind of related to the 7T in many ways because of their price point and their specs. And I want to just mention that because I have videos by the time this podcast is published, like unboxing videos on the channel on the YouTube. The Nubia Z20 is a $500 to $600 flagship phone coming to the US officially on
Wow.
the 14th. They sent me a device under embargo. They allowed us to do unboxing and mention the features of the phone, but not get into too much detail until the embargo. But basically, I already covered it on the show briefly, but I just want to remind people that it's coming because it's a really fascinating phone. It has 2 displays, one in the front, one in the back. So it doesn't have a selfie cam because you just flip the phone and you have a display in the back and you can use it. And it's OLED in the back, OLED in the front. The front is full, you know, borderless, bezel-less, full screen with a tiny chin. And then the back is just kind of what a phone used to look like back in the day. But on top of it is a triple camera system, very much like the OnePlus 7T. It's an 855 Plus, very much like the OnePlus 7T. Has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, has basically all the trimmings, and it's going to be between $500 and $600 with 8 gigs of RAM, 120 gigs of storage. Like, it's pretty amazing. And, you know, of course, it's not the optimized experience that OnePlus is in terms of software. But, you know, at the same time, it's a cool, neat little machine. You can run 2 apps separately on each display, but the displays don't have to stay on. So you could like have 2 apps running and then just flip the phone. It detects you flipped it, and it shows you the right display. And so you could have a Gmail on the back while you're like watching a video on the front. You know what I'm saying?
Is this like that Xiaomi phone that they showed off recently? The one that's supposed to be like double screened?
No, this is not like that. This is literally a phone like you do today, like a normal bezel-less phone from today. But instead of having a pop-up camera for a selfie, it doesn't have a selfie cam. You just have a display on the back.
Okay.
Like the back, most of the back is a display. And then there's a bar at the top, Nubia Z20, just Google it. There's a bar at the top with a triple camera system and a dual flash system. And that, of course, because you're taking selfies with the back camera now, it's really good selfies, right?
Sometimes you don't want those good selfies though, but yes.
And you can do wide angle selfies, and you can do telephoto selfies, and you can do like super high quality portraits because it has multiple lenses and it does proper portrait. It's really cool.
But you're still using Facetune because
well, yeah, of course.
you have a zit on your face.
Everybody does, right? Yeah, actually,
Yes.
It's funny. I use Snapseed healing tool to remove my zits.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, because I don't like using beautification very much. The other phone that's related again to these two, to the 7T and to the Z20, that one is not officially coming to the US, but it's again in the same price point, like $500 sweet spot, is the Oppo Reno 2. I have one. And as you know, Oppo and OnePlus are part of the BBK empire along with Vivo. They are very similar. And so the thing about the Reno, the original Reno came out about 6 months ago, which is crazy. And then they did a Reno 10 times zoom, which has that crazy periscope camera like the P30 Pro, right? Like the Huawei. And then they just announced this Reno 2, which is a lower price point. It has that shark fin pop-up camera. Like instead of a pop-up camera being a little square that pops out. It's like, this weird angle thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's that phone. And this one doesn't have an 855. It has a 730G though. It's the gaming version of the 730. So it's really fast and really good at gaming, but more affordable. It has a quad camera system in the back, triple like standard telephoto and wide, and then it has a special camera for depth perception, very much like the P30 Pro. All in all, we're looking at really nice phones for $500, all three of them. So I'm mentioning this because I'll have links in the show notes for these videos of these three phones. And now we can get on to the topics.
Yes. The other phone.
Jesus Christ. I love this intro. It's great. Okay. So speaking of Huawei P30 Pro,
yes.
Have you been following the saga of the Huawei Mate 30 and GMS?
Yeah, it makes me feel bad for them because what I equate it to is they're embroiled in a bunch of political theater. At this, that's
they are.
It's
ridiculous. Yeah. It's sad for them and sad for consumers. I think it's honestly the politics are really stupid and complicated. And I've been very clear about how I feel about Trump and the politics in this show many times. But but it's not. That's not what the show is about. I just want to say that we've covered this extensively in the history and the evolving nature of this Mate 30 not having GMS, Mate 30 Pro not having GMS, and I am experiencing that right now because I have an Honor 9X. Which is the second phone from the Honor Huawei empire that is not GMS approved. And they sent me a Chinese review unit. And I'm actually writing a story for Android Police about this, about how do you deal with a Chinese phone if you have one? Like what are the replacement apps that you can find that potentially give you most of the experience of Google without, but still using Google services. So it's a tough one. Wait for that article. But the 9X has the same issue. And so we've covered this. Last week we talked about this LZ Play that existed briefly and got pulled, right? And then this week we found out from XDA developers that there's a new workaround basically that somebody found, basically restoring from another phone. Right, but not using the phone transfer app, but actually using the official PC-based Huawei back. So you back up a phone with the Huawei PC. You have to have a Windows PC because I don't think this exists on Mac. You basically, it's like, Samsung has their own PC app for backing up your phone, right? Like Huawei has one. You install that app on your PC, you run it, you back up a phone like the P30 Pro or whatever, a phone that has GMS, and then you restore that back up to a basically factory reset Mate 30 and Mate 30 Pro. And apparently you get the stuff. There's a step in between I'm forgetting. That's the important part. You inject, once you have the backup file, or whatever, like some kind of binary file, a big 2-3 gigabyte file of your backup, you inject a couple of files in there with this little third-party app, and it adds basically the right hooks for GMS in there, and then you restore it. The problem is that, but here's the crazy thing, Flo. Okay, and this all happened yesterday, Tuesday the 8th. So it's Wednesday the 9th. And by last night, I put that in the show notes. And by last night, the little download that lets you inject the stuff into the backup so you can restore with GMS is now being gone from the internet. So it's like a game of whack-a-mole. But here's what I want to know. Like, in the greater scheme of things, who cares that there's another workaround and it's already gone? But obviously, there's going to be more. But what I don't understand, and I want your thoughts on this because you do all about Android. You guys cover this every week. What is Google's incentive in preventing this stuff? Google, obviously, they love Huawei as a partner.
Yeah.
That's been very clear. And they have to abide by the stupid government rules and play the political theater, as you said. But at the same time, why can't they just look the other way? They have no obligation. This is not their domain. This is like hackers dicking around with stuff.
This is a really good point that you're making. Like, why can't they look the other way? And I just feel like Google has become a very play by the book sort of company because of, think about how
wouldn't it be a great position of rebellion for them not to look the other way? I mean, what's the government going to do to freaking Google or Facebook? Look how Facebook's abused the government by dicking around with all of us.
Yeah.
Why doesn't Google use that for good right now?
Yeah. It's I'm worried to like say anything that's incendiary. I just, I just feel like it is all just to try and it's trying to be centrist.
It's safe face, yeah.
Yes,
and
exactly.
that's what I hate about Silicon Valley, how centrist everybody is being. And we're going to
yeah.
talk about this coming up with the next topic, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like this safe face BS that I really hate. It's like you have the power. It's not like Huawei right now doesn't have a leg to stand on in the US. And of course, they're going to get into worse trouble if they do stuff.
They're one of the biggest brands in the world, too. Like, you are cutting
off. Google could just be like, you know what, government, screw you. We are not doing this ban because it's bad for our business. You take us to court and we duke it out.
And the only reason it's happening is because of just some weirdly misconstrued like business alignment. It has nothing really to do with politics. And it gives credence. It gives credence to administration and the things
really,
they are choosing
absolutely.
for us.
It makes me really feel like this bad taste in my mouth that I have about the tech industry, living and being in the Silicon Valley like you are. This bad taste I've always had in the back of my mouth that a lot of the people in charge in tech are libertarian assholes that might not agree with our regime right now, but are going along with it because they're all about profits in the end, is really happening.
I mean, hashtag capitalism.
Yeah, well,
that's all I can think
on.
about.
I agree. Look, I'm the first. I run my own business. If capitalism didn't exist, this wouldn't be as easy.
Yeah, right.
Like I get it. Like I want to make profits too, but I think there's a point at which a company gets big enough that's no longer a valid way to work. You have an obligation to the public. In the case of Google and Facebook, I hate to say this, and this is my perspective as somebody who grew up in Europe and Canada and believes in socialized medicine, or universal healthcare, depending how you want to word it. I feel like these companies are utilities at this point, okay? Now, I don't want to regulate the crap out of them because that's not very hopeful. Every time I go back to France where I was born, I have to deal with bureaucracy and I hate it. I hate it. I don't want regulation. But I'm going to say that at that point, if you're an exec of a big company like that, yes, you have to face your shareholders, but I think you also have to face the consumers and the good of everyone. And I think this country has completely lost perspective of this.
Do you think it has also maybe to do with the fact that like Congress is going after Google something fierce right now?
Yeah,
and they're like, they don't want to rock the boat.
That's because the regime right now is just like trying to find any little error that they can use to basically, balance out a situation where Google were to say, well, screw you, we're Google.
And it's part of the political theater because it really is like California is seen as like the liberal beacon state.
Oh my God, yeah.
It is. It's all theater in the end. And it's frustrating for consumers because we just want good phones.
Oh, hey, Fleet Week has begun. I hear a helicopter. It's going to be loud around here.
Ours haven't started. I live by an Air Force base, and they will start commuting the jets from the Air Force base over to San Francisco real soon. So I'm about to be rumbled.
There was a big freaking helicopter that went by there. Wait, you still have power then?
In my little pocket of the Bay Area, I do.
So I don't know if you folks know this. Some of you I know are abroad. There's a lot of listeners in India, but This is America in 2019. The utility that's pretty much a monopoly, but it's a private company in California, PG&E, who has been, extremely poor at
managing its infrastructure,
running itself as a successful and safe business.
Yes.
Basically, they made a big mistake last year that started a big fire that killed people, that burned half of California, and they decided to avoid the lawsuits so they would declare bankruptcy. And they were slapped by fines and by government scrutiny, government of California scrutiny at least. And nonetheless, they decided not to fix the safety issues that could start more fires. So what's their solution? They're turning the power off to 800,000 households, almost 1 million households in the greater part of Northern California, the populated parts of Northern California, to prevent potential fires because there's this big wind advisory because, as you know, climate change is real and the weather's hot and windy and dry. And this show. So anyway, the point is that I actually honestly thought you might DM me this morning saying I have no power. because I'm safely in the city of San Francisco, which is exempt of this for obvious reasons. But you are close to the edge, aren't you?
I'm in a pocket of the northern East Bay, and next door they have the power off, and my entire county has the power off, but we don't, because we're in this little pocket that is apparently safe.
Well, it's probably considered part of the military base, right? Or something. Or you're close enough to that you're part on the same grid chunk or something.
No, I think it's just because we're sea level. And and the places that are shut off are a little higher
Inland.
than us, like in the hills. And so we're not as surrounded by hills. But I do live next to a refinery, so I have other.
Oh yeah, you're that. I didn't realize you were that close to the refinery over there.
I mean, there's a lot of refineries in the Bay Area. Everybody just forgets about them.
That's right, because they're hidden in beautiful like greenery.
I know.
Basically, you're driving along. There's beautiful green hills, and then and then there's more beautiful green hills, and you're like, I don't think I saw. These are not the droids you're looking for.
Yes.
There is no refinery here.
Yes.
Anyway, so oh my God, the tangents. Where were we? Oh right, so LZ Play got canceled, and now there's a workaround, and the workaround itself got canceled. I'm honestly haven't had time this morning to look to see if somebody's restored these files, if they're somewhere available on another download. But basically, there's another workaround. So here's my advice to you, and we've said this all along on the show: do not buy a Mate 30 Pro or Honor 9X. You're going to be in a land of hurt. But if you are, because maybe you live in a place where Google is not very prominent, and maybe you're not a Google user, or maybe a place that Google is prominent, but you're not a Google user, and that's totally fine. I know a lot of my European friends are not big fans of Google and don't use Google services for a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Maybe they use Microsoft services instead, because you need to have something. I mean, can't imagine life without some sort of Google Drive equivalent or all this other good stuff that I enjoy every day. Right. So, I mean, the point is that if that's the case, then of course buy one. But I'm just saying, if you're relying on Google, these phones are not for you. And even though these workarounds keep coming through, don't think that this is going to continue being a game of whack-a-mole where you're going to be at the mercy of politics and political theater and these companies doing whatever they decide to do, Huawei and Honor, to kind of like outdo each other, stay with each other, whatever the politics at the time might be. So I hate to say this because I'm a huge fan of what Huawei and Honor are doing. I really feel that in imaging, they are the best. This Honor 9X that I have is a $290 phone, Flo, and it takes pictures at least as good as a $500 or $600 what I call an affordable flagship. You know what I'm saying? It's amazing. And you're like, why can't I recommend this phone? Because the camera is amazing. So, yeah, there you go. That's it. So I'll put a link to the XDA forums article if you are brave enough. And, I suppose with my Honor 9X, I was going to try it, but then the files are gone away. So the takeaway, though, in my Honor 9X experience or adventure that I'm kind of documenting to write this story for Android Police on how to live without the Google mobile services on a phone when you are a Google mobile services customer, is that there is this thing called Aurora Installer or Aurora App Store. Like Aurora, like an Aurora Borealis. And it is
F-Droid, yes.
Yeah, it is an app store for Android that runs on any Android phone that basically connects to Google Play, like it's the Google Play Store, and it accesses it anonymously somehow through some back door and gets you install anything that's on Google Play services.
Yep, Pokemon Go, DuckDuckGo. I like just going through it right now.
It's amazing. However, it could go away any moment because it's obviously very probably using some back doors. But apparently they've been around for a while and they keep finding workarounds to make it work again. So if you ever need to install an app on your phone without Google keeping track of that app, that you've installed it and you wanted to do anonymously, you can use the Aurora Play Store, the Aurora app. And the best part for me is that it was a one-stop shop to at least install the apps that I knew would work, like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, right? Because here's the thing, Flo. I tried to install the Amazon store. That was my first thought. I was like, okay, I've got the Huawei App Store on there, and it's all Chinese apps. Like there's very little. So I went to Amazon's install. They have a website. You can download the APK for the App Store from Amazon, and you can get started. I installed it. I was able to log into my Amazon account, but then nothing worked. Like it said no network connection, when clearly I was on Wi-Fi or cellular. Like something in the firmware of this Chinese phone probably detected that I was using Amazon Store and said, nope, you can't install apps from this. So I gave up. And Aurora, however, worked like a charm. So instead of going to APK Mirror, which, as you know, Android Police also kind of runs as a side thing, and it's a great resource, it's a little hassle to go through and pick the right APKs and all that. Like this is just like being in the Google Play Store and just works. And it's anonymous. So I did that. And that was good. But of course, I tried to install the Google apps, right? And guess what? Some of them work. Google Maps works.
Oh.
It doesn't let you store the history, right? Like you basically, it asks you to log in and then you can say skip. And then if you don't log in, you just don't get a history, right? Of your map searches and stuff. And of course, you don't get the Google location tracking, which is good for some people. But it's Google Maps and it works like a charm. Some apps, however, Google Photos doesn't work at all. Like I want to just edit photos. I didn't even care about the backing up of photos or whatever. I just want to use it as a gallery, right? And an editor. And I can't do that. Snapseed though, no problem. So so it's interesting. Like I'm going to document which apps work, which apps don't work. Chrome works. You can install the Chrome browser. Of course, you can't log into your Google account to get your Chrome history and all your logins and stuff. But here's the kicker, Flo. It'll remember passwords on basically a local account that's not an account. Like it's basically local storage, just like a normal web browser would. So you can kind of recreate a little bit of your universe by logging in a few times and getting it to save your passwords. So not all is lost. Outlook is phenomenal from Microsoft as a Gmail replacement.
Yeah, right. I've heard that.
It is problematic because it's still not as good as Gmail. You can't do labels, for example. But at least it lets you read your email, reply to it, prioritize emails, all that, flag emails, all that stuff. And it works on multiple Google accounts, and it has a built-in calendar, so you don't need Google Calendar. And it works like a charm. Like it integrates with Google superbly. You have to install Chrome to be able to log into Google accounts with the Outlook app, because get this, the Outlook app starts a web browser instance for you to log in, right? Mm-hmm. As you know, Google does a lot when it's used by third parties. However, the built-in web browser doesn't let you connect. So you have to install Google Chrome, then make that the default browser. Then you can use Outlook to log into Google, no problem.
That's a lot of hurdles. Nobody's
I'm
going to
telling
want
you,
to
it's
do
going
that.
to be a really amazing article because it's just going to demystify a lot of the, it's no big deal. Because it's a huge deal. It's unfreaking usable.
Well, it also shows how much we rely on one company to kind of make things usable for us. You know what I mean?
Totally. All right, let's move on to the next topic. And this one's a big one.
Oh, yeah.
It's heavy. So
doozy.
I don't know if you saw, but let's start chronologically. Andy Rubin, the founder of Essential, the company who made the Essential phone 2 years ago, who also is one of the main people behind Android. He's kind of like the guy who created Android, although there's many other people to credit for Android, who also is the guy behind the Sidekick, which is a great product back in the day.
It was.
Right? He's kind of like in many ways one of the most influential people in getting into the smartphone world where it is today, just like Steve Jobs with the iPhone. Mm-hmm. And his team, of course, and the team that worked with Andy Rubin has come out of the woodwork with posting photos of a new phone, which we thought there's been lots of rumors of an Essential Phone 2 for a while. This is apparently has a code name or is named Gem, Gem, like a gem, like a rock. And it's really weird. Do you want to describe the phone for us? Maybe make that analogy with the various phones that we were looking at earlier?
Yes. So those of you who have been using cell phones for a long time, now I went into the realm of cell phones around high school time, which was about 18 years ago for me or so. So this phone looks like the phone of the past, was the Samsung Juke. For Verizon users, might remember there was this long, skinny flip phone, and it kind of it was like a switchblade, and you would open it, it would open to a full phone, and it was just this like skinny little phone that you would hold up to your face, and then you would kind of flip it back in, and it would just like be this little pocketable thing. So it kind of looks like that. It's this tall, narrow. I want to say it's kind of like an Android TV remote. It's just this very skinny little bar of a thing with a display on it, and it
looks really small, actually. I mean,
it does. Well, yeah,
it's definitely like obviously doesn't fold like the Juke did. It's more like the LG BL40, which nobody probably remembers because it never came to
It
North
wasn't an
America.
American phone, yeah.
It was an LG Chocolate series phone, so it had incredibly great industrial design. But it was very skinny and tall, a touchscreen phone. It was a dumb phone, but it had a lot of smartphone features, basically like those KaiOS phones do today. We're going to talk about KaiOS in a minute. But the thing is, it's interesting. It has this crazy, like, shimmery back, like a lot of the Chinese phones do, like the Honors and the Huawei's and
reminds
the
me
Oppos
of
and
the LG phones that were at Verizon around like the late 2007, 2008. I had a phone that was in that exact orange hue.
But the difference is this is like glass probably, and it's like that crazy,
yes, it's not plastic.
like it changes colored depending on which angle you look at it, and it's fancy and stuff.
Yeah, they look like there's an aesthetic to it. I'm into it. It
looks cool, and it has us scratching our heads going like, okay, what are they doing here with Android? There was a lot of rumors that this would be a primarily voice-controlled phone, so that, because the first thing you think of when you see this thing is, how do I type on this? It's not wide enough to have a regular keyboard. Then if you put it in landscape mode, it's super long, so it would be very awkward to type on. So perhaps this is their thing. You're going to use it mostly through voice, and then the UI looks very different. I don't even know if it's running Android. I assume it would, but if it is running Android, it's definitely heavily skinned. It looks more like a Wear OS, like with all these cards and things. It kind of looks like the Google Discover, really.
It I was going to say it looks like Android Auto, actually, a little bit.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it totally does look like Android Auto.
Yeah. Just with like little...
So that's the news part. But there's so much more to the story, unfortunately, and it's kind of heavily loaded. I will link to in the show notes an Engadget article. I could have picked a Verge article. It doesn't matter. And somebody wrote an article when this happened on Twitter, when Andy Rubin tweeted these photos, and you'll be able to see everything consolidated as that we know in one place through that article. And that's the news part of the story. But there's another big part that's really troubling here, is that in between the Essential phone number 1 and this new Gem phone, Andy Rubin, got in trouble and was accused of sexual harassment by some women, and was ousted of Google, but apparently was paid a large amount of money at the same time.
90 million, yes.
At the time, he was head of the robotics part of Google. And this is problematic because he has denied the allegations. And as you know, as women in tech, Flo, you can relate to this. There is a lot of sexual harassment going on, and a lot of people are looking the other way. And a lot of this pushing things under the carpet is happening, right? And this feels very much like the Google pushing things under the carpet. But the worst part is that Andy Rubin has denied the allegations, and now he's coming out of the woodwork. No single tweet since he denied the allegations. And it's not Essential that tweeted these photos. It's Andy Rubin that tweeted these photos. And so I have issues with this because I'm like, do I want to support a company who is pretty much equal to Andy Rubin in every way? Because, the company Essential would not have got the funding it did, would not have made Essential Phone 1, would not have failed with Essential Phone 1. Let's put it how it is. It was a great phone. I liked it a lot, but it didn't succeed in the market, etc. If the investors hadn't, if Andy Rubin hadn't been at the helm, because he's got that reputation of being the founder of Android, and people pay attention when somebody important like that makes a new device. So I'm wondering if we as media journalists should support this next endeavor, because this guy has basically tried to brush these sexual harassment allegations under the rug, and yet it's still hanging there, and Essential is highly associated. In fact, he tweeted the photos himself before Essential did. So that's my issue with it, and I'm not the only one. David Ruddock at Android Police, the editor-in-chief, wrote about this, and I will link to the story. I want to know how you feel about it.
So it's very multifaceted for me. First of all, I think it's... You know how a lot of folks kind of get upset that, for instance, some publications like the New York Times will tend to post a lot of opinion pieces from kind of conservative folk, or like they'll post things about like how, they'll just post things that are not moving society forward. That's how I'm going to put that. That's kind of how I feel being a journalist in this realm. I feel like we don't necessarily need to support something. We can report on it.
Correct.
And we should report and hold accountable the fact that this did happen. I mean, there are some publications out there that like mention this news without any mention of the controversy that it was surrounding Ruben, which about a year ago, by the way, because when he tweeted about this was around October 25th, 2018. So it was a year since that New York Times article came out, kind of talking about everything that had happened, how...
And it's the New York Times. Like, I mean, look, they did the research, they had... and sources that, backed a lot of these allegations. So it's like, I don't know, if you're in a situation where you did something wrong, maybe fess up to it, admit it, and move on and apologize. None of that has happened, right?
Yeah.
And then here we are supposed to kind of like completely forget about this and not, I know it's not about tech, right? You're going to say, but we're still reporting the news. But I think it's problematic that we would... not mention it. And that's why. And I also want to mention that, I support what David wrote. I support what Android Police's position is here, not just because I write for them, but because, I'm just an independent journalist at this point. I don't have to support the party line of the publications I write for. But I do support because I do feel that this is important. And what they, their position is that we're not going to, we're going to report on the news, but we're not going to accept any press conference invites or review units from this company. We will go out and buy the device ourselves and renew it when the time comes, because we feel that until this is resolved, until something has been discussed, until this is removed from underneath the rug and pulled out and cleared up, that this is like the elephant in the room, that every time we discuss this phone is going to happen, right? And I completely support and agree with this. I think it's problematic, and that's why. If it wasn't problematic, we wouldn't care, and we would just talk about the phone, and we would go to the press events, and we would get the devices, and everything would be nice. I don't know myself how I'm going to deal with this yet in terms of product, because I obviously want to report on it and experience the device, but I don't know. Probably not going to be on their radar. Last time I wasn't. I had to beg for an essential phone. This time I might just buy one and return it, or borrow it from somebody else.
See, it's a bummer for me because I didn't review the last Essential phone, but I did interview some of the developers at Essential a couple years back when I was freelancing for Android Authority. And, there are a lot of great people who work there and really believe in the product.
No, and I believe that. Absolutely.
And I think it's unfair that Ruben takes away the controversy surrounding him, is taking away from the people who actually worked really hard on this technology, worked hard on this new UI. That is really unfortunate. I wish there was a way that Essential, they should have taken the press for this and just posted it publicly from the official Essential account versus letting Ruben take this over. And I think that's another way where it's just very frustrating. It's like it's kind of the Woody Allen effect.
Exactly. The whole thing is very problematic. And I think that those who are not acknowledging this right now are doing a disservice to both the tech industry, the tech world, the consumers, and most importantly, women, right? Women in tech, women in general. It's like, as a woman in tech myself, as you a woman in tech, it's like, how can we work in this toxic environment ourselves, right?
Knowing like these people are protected.
These people are being protected right now. And I want to be clear, they're being protected because people are looking the other way, not, and looking the other way is toxic sometimes. And this is exactly what's happening right now. That's why I think we need to take a stance. And I will let you, this is very complicated and difficult stuff. I will let you read what David Relic wrote at Android Police, because he put it in really succinct and well put words. And I could have written the same thing because I feel the same way. But I'm not going to, because it's already been done. And I'm just going to say, here you go. Check this out. I'm not looking the other way. This bothers me, despite the fact that I'm super excited about this gem phone and what it might bring to the table and how cool it might be.
And also, I just want to say it's very important for folks like David Ruddock to be calling this out specifically, because oftentimes some of us maybe don't feel supported in this industry by some of our male colleagues. And so it is good to see support in this manner. And I also want to say that whatever is happening here with Essential is not good PR, because a PR person needs to look at this and go, okay, so I'm going to put this person that people now kind of people refer to now as a predator. I'm sorry to put that out there.
No, I think that's totally fair.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of commentary.
I use the alleged sexual harassment sentence because I'm trying to be as fair as I can, because until he apologizes or we have more clear facts from another New York Times story, we can't really say anything else. But I personally, if you talk to me one-on-one, use different words potentially that start with the letter R, and that's where I'll leave it.
Yeah, it's, well, and I'm just quoting the commentary that I've been reading across the web, because I've been looking through the comments on the different articles, like to see what people are saying and just kind of studying that. And if you are the PR for Essential, you need to go read the comments and see. It is polarizing. Yeah, half the people are going, wow, this is a very interesting UI, like perspective, a very interesting way to take the mobile UI. And it is met with a commentary of, but do I really want to buy like this phone or support this product from this person who has been completely unapologetic about any of the allegations made against them? So it's difficult. And yes, I know for a lot of folks, they're like, well, this is just like a difficult time. And this is like post Me Too. But yeah, so take that in consideration if you're doing PR.
Things are not going to change, folks, until we take a stance and all band with each other on this stuff, okay? Like, this is the reality. Instead of, again, looking the other way is violence, okay? Looking the other way, not supporting women in tech, women who are getting harassed in whatever line of work, anybody that's being at the mercy of these predators is basically you saying what you're experiencing is not important. And that's bad. And so that's why we have to bring it up, because technology doesn't exist without culture and people behind it, right? Mm-hmm. You can't look the other way at this stuff. It's like you can't look the other way at politics and climate change and all this other stuff when you talk about tech.
This is a very well-rounded episode.
Right? And, I know this is not the kind of light, fluffy stuff that you might be able to talk about on some other shows, but I'm glad you're here, and I hope this is not making you feel uncomfortable.
No, thank you for having me here. It's I'm a lot louder about it here than I would be in other places, but I think it was very interesting to see the way that this is. But just going forward, speaking about the UI in general, I want to see more of this kind of innovation from other companies. We were talking about what's going on with Huawei, with like not having a GMS, and we're talking about these Chinese OEMs that are kind of like trying to make strides. And I think we are seeing a lot of strides in hardware, the shark fin camera, the pop-up camera, all the lenses that are being bundled in on phones.
Dual screens, folding phones.
Yeah, that's great. But what about UI? Like we can change the paradigm of how people use phones, actually. We just have to teach a new way that people want to use them. And so I am curious about this effect that Essential is working on. And I want to hear more from the developers who are working on it, not from the face of a dude.
Yeah, a dude that is problematic at best. And so here, so that's kind of what we're saying. This is exciting. We're cool about it. We want to find out more. This is cool, but there's lots of problems. And if we don't discuss them, we're doing a disservice to the entire universe right now. And you might not see that, you might not understand that, but I really strongly suggest, if you don't get it, read the story by David, linked in the show notes, and think about it. Think about it for a while and figure out why you feel so uncomfortable having this conversation. Right?
And just for the record, the photos that Essential posted on their official Twitter account, very profesh. The colors stand out a lot more. They're like edited photos, That would have been a nice, I think, way to put it forward before Andy Rubin's hands all over this UI.
Yeah. Dirty, dirty hands.
That's a good way to leave that, I think.
Yeah, let's move on. Wow, this show flow. Jesus Christ.
Sorry, this is what you get for having me on.
I'm not religious. I just swear by Jesus a lot.
Me too.
There we go. We lost a few more people. Digging in there. All right. So let's see. The podcast topics. I lost the place I was in.
I think it was Nokia we were going to talk about.
I just want to talk about, okay, so a few reviews came out of the Nokia 7.2 recently because it is now available in the US, and I think there might have been an embargo or something. I have a review in it. I have it here. I've been using it for a few days. I didn't get it under embargo, but nonetheless, this is a phone that was announced at IFA and is very much a mid-ranger, $350. And it's, put forward by Nokia as definitely a mid-ranger. I think it says Snapdragon 660 or something in there, or 650, 670. I don't remember. Look it up. But the point is, it has a lot of camera and imaging features. And of course, that's how Nokia placed it. It's not a pure view device, I don't think, but it has Zeiss optics and 3 lenses in the back.
48 megapixel.
Yeah, one of them is that super popular IMX 586 or 582, depending on which version. That's Sony sensor that's found on like the OnePlus 7T, OnePlus 7 Pro, the Oppo Reno that I just talked about, a whole bunch of phones now. Lots of phones have this sensor. It's a really good sensor because if you've got the right software on it, it just performs like a champ. Mm-hmm. However, after using this phone for a few days, it's Android One, it's pure Android, there are a few things that make me scratch my head, right? Like when I see what China is producing at that price point, I don't know if you're familiar with this, Flo, but there is the Xiaomi Mi 9T and Mi 9T Pro, as well as the twin, same exact phone, but just branded differently, Redmi K20, K20 Pro, which cost between $280 and $400 depending on which processor they have, the 730 or the 855. And these phones completely obliterate this Nokia 7.2. And I'm saying this because Nokia, even though it's a Finnish company, HMD Global now, it's still, the phones are made in China by Chinese manufacturers with Chinese things, et cetera, et cetera. So you're essentially, you're paying the same amount for less hardware, but Google, Android One at this point. And I'm not sure how I feel about that because honestly, once you put the, like a Nova launcher and the Gboard keyboard on those Xiaomi phones, those Redmi phones, you're getting basically the 855 version of the phone that costs around $400. You're basically getting a OnePlus 7T for $200 less.
Wow.
In terms of performance, once you skin them yourself. Like, they are so good. They're top-of-line flagships with large batteries, state-of-the-art processor, tons of RAM and storage. They have headphone jacks, which is a bonus. They have pop-up cameras. I mean, the whole 9 yards. They have triple camera in the back with that Sony sensor. So that's why I'm like, how do I resolve that this phone costs $350, has a Snapdragon 600 series, and has a small battery, 30-something, 3500?
3500, yeah.
And I'm like, like if it was $250, it'd be all over. I'd be like, this is great with a Nokia, with Android One, but $350. And then I tested it, I started using it. And honestly, the camera doesn't blow me away. It's good, but it's not Google Pixel 3a good.
So you agree with Corbin Davenport's headline on Android Police?
Yeah, the Pixel 3a is the same hardware essentially, but straight from Google, and the camera just totally obliterates this Nokia.
And it has updates, software updates.
And it has, better yet, it has Android 10 already.
Yeah, exactly.
And here's the kicker. Here's the thing that really gonna piss you off. Is that, it has a lesser piece of camera hardware, but it takes better photos. Yeah, no, it doesn't have the versatility because it doesn't have a wide angle. Yeah. But the third camera on that Nokia 7.2 is a 2 megapixel, basically depth sensor used for bokeh. And I have to admit, the portrait mode on this Nokia is very nice. It works very well. That was one of the big selling points at IFA. It has a bunch of different simulated Zeiss lenses for different types of bokeh shapes, like star dots, hearts, all that stuff. Like you can have the bokeh in the background be different kind of shapes, right? And it gives it a very different vibe. But do you really need that? Like, do you care when you can buy, especially now the Pixel 3a is $350. It's gone down in price.
Yeah, $350 for a non-Google phone sometimes is a little hard to swallow when there's one that is on sale everywhere.
And it's the same specs, basically, except it doesn't have that wide-angle camera. That's basically the only thing you lose the Nokia name. And here's the thing that bothers me about this Nokia 7.2 as well. There's other things. I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to like it. I'm a Nokia fan. I was excited about this phone was announced at IFA because I was like, oh, IMX 586.
It's a strong brand, yeah.
Strong brand. Blah, 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 Google, Android One, all that. But okay, the chassis is plastic, the back is glass, but it's the frame of it is plastic. Whereas the 7.1 last year had a metal frame, so they've cheapened it in a way. It's a mid-range phone in every way in terms of specs, battery, whatever else. It has Android 1, bonus, but doesn't have Android 10 yet. It has this interesting camera system that in the end doesn't really deliver much more than a Pixel 3a. So I'm like, why? Like, how does it fit in the market? Especially when it's a Chinese phone, essentially, right? But this Chinese phone costs the same as Chinese phones that obliterate this thing, like that Xiaomi I just talked about. Like, if you want to buy a phone where you're not sure you're going to get updates and you just skin it a little bit and you spend that kind of money, I'd say go for the Xiaomis all the way. You're getting a way better phone, faster processor, better cameras, everything. Or get pure Google and buy Pixel 3a.
There's going to be Nokia folks, by the way, that are not going to be happy with this.
I know, but again, look, everybody, I've been writing about phones since 2005, and Nokia's always been my big little darling, even in the Windows Phone days, especially in the Symbian days when they made the best camera phones. Like, I've always been a supporter, and I still support them. I really want to love the Nokia 9 PureView, and it was a disaster. And I want to like this phone, but in the vacuum, this phone is great. Like, I just want you to know, like, this phone is fantastic, but not at $350. This phone is fantastic at $250 or maybe $279. And I hate to say that, but a Chinese company should be able to pull that off and still make profit.
Yeah.
And essentially, this is a Chinese company. So if they could undercut Google, if this phone goes down to $300 next week, then I can go like, okay, maybe now you have a good decision to make here between a $353 and save $50 and get essentially more features because you have more lenses in the back. Then I can kind of maybe justify it. But then, things like finishing the chassis in plastic, and I'm like, okay, like, you're not trying very hard here, Nokia. Yeah. You're not trying to impress me. So,
By the way, I love it when you say la 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 because it's a very European, like,
la la la. And I gesticulate at the same time.
Yeah,
you've seen me on All About Android.
Yeah, well, as my relatives do the same, so it's it's like home for me.
Okay, we have a few more topics before we wrap up. Let's bullet call them because they're interesting. So I got my good buddy at TCL Alcatel sent me one of those Alcatel Go Flip KaiOS.
They're all over the web.
My friend Brad Mullen. I want to make clear that there's actually a segue here. Nokia announced this flip phone at IFA. What was it? 2720? Is that it? Yeah, Nokia 2720. So this is how Nokia, since they became HMD Global, Chinese company based out of Finland, are reissuing kind of classic Nokia phones, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the third reissue, basically. But they didn't go 20 years back this time. They went 10 years back. Because 10 years ago, Nokia made this phone called the Nokia 2720, which was a flip phone that they sold in the US that was relatively popular because, there was nothing to it. It was just a flip phone. But it was cool, and it was available here. And so some people are fondly remembering that phone. So they announced this at IFA. It's like a modernized version of the 2720. It has this OS that is also on the Banana phone from the year before, the Matrix phone.
Yes.
Called KaiOS. And so KaiOS is like a semi-smartphone OS. It's a Linux-based smartphone OS. Let's say how it is. But it's optimized to run on non-touchscreen devices. And it has deep Google integration that includes Google Assistant. And so imagine a phone that has a regular T9 number pad that doesn't have QWERTY because it doesn't have a touchscreen, but that you can dictate to because it has Google Voice Assistant. So anyway, the point is that this KaiOS has been interesting, but that Banana phone never came to the US. It never had US bands. Mm-hmm. As you know, 2G is pretty much gone in the US. 3G is dying. So you pretty much need a phone that, even if it's like a dumb phone, like a non-smartphone, like a non-Android phone, you need a phone that supports 4G in the US. And so that's that Banana phone did. And this year, this 2720 they announced at IFA doesn't either. They made it clear it's not coming to the US. They won't have US band support. But I'm wondering if they're like clones of each other or come from the same factory or have the same guts, or if Nokia is getting Alcatel to build, TCL to build this phone for them. But right around the same time, Alcatel announced that they're making this exactly almost spec-wise identical, design-wise slightly different, flip phone called the Go Flip 3, which is a iOS-based flip phone for the US market that's available on T-Mobile, AT&T, and a bunch of other budget brands. And so Brad sent me one, and it's awesome. I have to say, I mean, I don't think I could live with one because I'm a smartphone
Google
user.
Assistant, YouTube, Google Maps, an app
and I've
store.
tested everything. Oh, and there is 4G LTE, and there is hotspot. It has Wi-Fi, so you can turn it into a hotspot. Now, the battery is only like 1,500 milliamp hours, so I don't think you're going to hotspot for very long.
No.
But nonetheless, this is a sleek, affordable $90 US, and you can get it free on contract, obviously. Flip phone. The only drawbacks is the camera has 2 megapixels and it's really kind of crap. And the display is actually water VGA, so it's 320 by 240 for the 2.6 inch or 2.8 inches that the display is. It's perfectly enough resolution. The biggest problem with the display
This
is
is like
that
my college phone.
it's not IPS. It's not an OLED. It's not an IPS. It's just an LCD, and it's washed out. Like, it has incredibly bad viewing angles. It completely washes out in direct sunlight. There's a display in the front as well, and it's color as well. It's a smaller square display. It has a headphone jack, has micro USB, takes nano SIMs, has micro SD, has only 4 gigs of internal storage, 512 megs of RAM, and a Snapdragon 210.
Wow, this just takes me back to college. I'm sorry, because that's what I was using in college.
My point is that, look, if you want a phone that gives you access to your Google stuff, albeit is a little harder to use because you have to either dictate or type T9, which is really hard for a lot of people.
In this day, yes.
And also not have a touch screen, which is really weird. You always want to tap the screen, like trying to touch the screen on this thing. If you want just like a weekend phone that is completely a burner, that you don't have to worry about dropping and breaking and throwing in the lake backs, and then you get a new SIM on Monday when you come back to civilization and put it back in your smartphone and you're good to go. This is the phone, because like I put my own T-Mobile SIM in there, and it's a T-Mobile phone, so it works. You don't need special plan or anything to make it work, and hotspot works and everything works. So you have Google Assistant, more importantly, like you can just push a button and talk to it and say like, what's the weather, and it tells you, what's going on.
Turn on the lights.
You can type a text to someone real quick by just telling Google about it. You can check your email. You have Google Maps. You have YouTube. So I mean, and there's Twitter and Facebook as well, because the iOS has an app store. And it has limited apps on there. So you're not completely disconnected. So the point of this thing is not to completely disconnect you from, like this whole concept that's been going on. What do they call it, Flo? The disconnect phone, I don't want to touch.
I just think of digital well-being, but yes.
Digital well-being. But basically, this is not what that's about. This is about just like a simpler, cheaper phone you don't have to worry about losing. That's also cool because it's a flip phone. And flip phones are cool. I have an Android flip phone. The Samsung Galaxy Folder, Folder, which is a 2 or 3 year old now, very, very mid-range at the time, so now very low-end Galaxy Android phone with a touchscreen on the flip.
I remember this one.
It's totally a flip phone with a touchscreen. It's really weird. But this is not it. This is simpler than that. And so I just appreciate it. I just wish the display and the camera were better for that $90. I know I'm asking for a lot, but hey, Alcatel makes the Alcatel Onyx for Cricket, which is a $120 Android phone, and that has much better cameras and much better processor. It's only $30 more. So, I'm just saying, like, they could have put a slightly better camera and display on this thing.
And it does turn-by-turn directions, because as I'm reading in the comments, there's no...
It's a full-on Google Maps. So, yeah. So there you go. I just want to mention I have one. It's interesting. If you want a cheap phone that's not a completely terrible experience, this might be it. There's rumors of HTC coming back in terms of making smartphones, like premium smartphones. How do you feel about that?
Insert Kanye hands up gif here. That's how I feel about that.
Flo, I need to have you on more often. This is great.
I miss them. I used the HTC M9 for such a long time.
Come on, you're using an HTC phone every day.
Yeah.
Your Pixel.
Yeah, you're right.
I know it's not made by HTC anymore, not like the original Pixel 1. The original Pixel 2 XL was HTC as well, but the Pixel 3s are definitely full on Google. Look, they acquire so many of the HTC engineers that at this point, you might as well have an HTC phone in your pocket.
Yeah, they still make really pretty phones too. Like, that's what's really...
Yeah, the Wildfire X and stuff. I know. Oh well, we'll see. I support it. I don't want that brand to go away, and I'm not too excited about the HTC Vive. So, I mean, it's cool. Don't get me wrong. I think it's one of the best VR headsets out there. But I'm just saying, like, I want the phones to stay, and I want them to come back. If they can make a comeback,
the
great.
Vive
I don't
is so
think it'll
niche.
happen.
It's such a niche market, like versus a phone.
Exactly. So, yeah. So these are rumors. I'll link to the Android Authority article about it. We'll see what happens. We'll see. Finally, this is a kind of an outlier, weird topic, but I was Googling, for news, and Digital Trends wrote a story about this phone called the Teracube phone, which is a $400 phone, Android phone, like really your generic $400 mid-range Android phone that you probably wouldn't care about at all. But what got my attention is that this thing comes with a 4-year warranty.
Yeah.
The idea is that you're going to keep this phone for 4 years. And I'm like scratching my head, but at the same time kind of like interested. I mean, it looks very mid-range today. I hate to see what it'd be like 4 years from now. It has a MediaTek Helio P60, which is mid-range.
Yeah.
It has a lot of RAM, 6 gigs. That's probably promising. But like this phone is going to be obsolete in 2 years, never mind 4.
It'll be obsolete in 9 months. I'm sorry. It's like,
okay, yeah, you're right.
I mean, by the time MWC comes out and we have like all these, that's just around the corner when you think about it. I mean, Christmas is tomorrow.
Oh, and it's not getting Android 10 until spring of 2020 when Android 11 is going to be announced at I/O, right?
Yeah, and didn't Google, by the way, release those new GMS requirements that you have to have Android 10 now on your handsets by January 20th or 2020 or something like that? That happened yesterday, so that's
going to make for some really buggy phones.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going to force themselves to run Android 10, and then, your Galaxy Note 10 Plus is going to be buggy as F because Samsung doesn't know how to do that properly.
No, with all that money.
I mean, I'm calling out Samsung. It could be anyone. Insert LG, insert anyone in here that doesn't seem to know how to update their phones in a timely manner.
But this phone is for people who just don't want to deal with updating it, right? Because you get a free...
Well, I mean, that's why I brought it up. Like, I'm not excited about it, but I'm kind of like scratching my head and going like, interesting idea. Let's see what Flo has to say.
I appreciate the movement to try and get... I know, like, iFixit has been a big proponent of this, and I know the Fairphone is a big proponent of this.
The Fairphone is cool.
To try and get people to not be so wasteful about tech. But the thing is, it has to be an industry-wide movement. You can't just have a bunch of OEMs coming out and saying, like, we'll take care of this for you. Like, I appreciate it, but let's think about where everybody is in the world of tech. Like, everybody still wants to use what is able and capable, and you have to be able to offer that to some extent. It'd be more helpful if the big OEMs would just make their stuff serviceable, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, normally I would have like whatever mid-range phone for $400. Screw you. I can buy a Pixel 3a and it'll last 4 years. Trust me.
Yeah, Google will update it.
Yeah, I'll put it in a big beefy case. I will baby it every night. I will rub its back.
I won't take it into the shower.
I love you, little Pixel. You are the best. You're so good. You're gonna stay with me for 4 years. Like I really don't see what's the big deal here. But
I'm gonna smother that poor Pixel 3a. It needs to leave the house and see the world outside.
It's interesting to me because as you know, and like making phones is such a narrow profit margin these days that I don't understand all these companies are coming out doing like, even like back in the day, Nextbit and stuff, it's like how can you even think of going into the phone business right now?
Yeah. When
Xiaomi is selling essentially a flagship for $400.
Yeah, it's like starting a makeup YouTube channel. It's just oversaturated.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, good luck HTC with that comeback. I want you to, but
who knows the HTC brand at this point?
Yeah, well, nobody knows the Nokia brand either, so I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily a problem.
Yeah.
If they make a cool phone, people will come, right? It's like now that OnePlus can be bought at a carrier, T-Mobile, and at another carrier, Sprint, for the 7 Pro
and
5G.
Used on Verizon.
And used on Verizon. Oh, by the way, the Nokia 7.2 works on Verizon.
Oh.
I mean, not CDMA, but it does VoLTE, supports LTE properly, so that's good news. I'm actually surprised, Flo, how many phones do that now. The Axon 10 Pro I reviewed a while back for Geekspin, and now actually putting Verizon SIMs in my unlocked LTE-only non-CDMA phones just to test if they do VoLTE on Verizon, because a lot of them just do.
And it sounds great.
It works fantastic, except as soon as you're in a 3G area, you have no service.
Oh.
Right? I mean, that's the reality. People don't realize that, yes, you can use a OnePlus 7T and OnePlus 7 Pro and OnePlus 7 and even a 60 with Verizon, no problem, but you'd better have LTE because otherwise you're SOL. I think it will roam on AT&T for voice calls, but data is gone at that point if you're no longer in coverage
That
area.
might explain why I have service in areas with the Pixel 3, which by the way is unlocked, versus my husband who's using the 7 Pro that I gave him. Because sometimes...
Oh, that's totally what it is. Like, it does not have CDMA. Like,
that's
one
true.
thing. Like, you have to... I'm very clear in my reviews that I say with Verizon support without CDMA, meaning like you cannot use this phone in a big chunk of the US. Like, it's like buying a T-Mobile phone today that doesn't have 600 megahertz support. It's like, good luck with that.
Yeah.
All right. Whew, what a show.
I know.
Flo. What a show. We did it, though. I think we survived this.
Yes.
Somehow.
This was great. Thank you for like engaging me in all this conversation. It was really, it's a good tell of how this industry is progressing and how different it is than it was even 5 years ago.
I mean, you know, when I invited you, I was like, oh, I haven't had Flo in a while. I wonder if she's available. And then this stuff happened in the last 2 days and I'm like, oh, crap. And especially this morning when I woke up and saw David's article, I was like, we need to talk about this. I'm actually glad I don't have a dude on the show right now. Not that, no offense to dudes, right? To my dude friends. I love my dude journalist friends. They're really great. But I'm just saying, like, having another woman voice on this show talking about this very problematic thing is kind of perfect timing, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's a heavy stuff.
Yeah, it is. But you know what? We're here. I'm still showing up every day. So,
and honestly, we are working with some wonderful folks that are really supportive, like David and like other folks that we know that are really great. So it's, you know, it's changing maybe, but it's the awareness out there that needs to change. And I think that's kind of what I'm hoping this show will bring to some people. I'm sure we'll lose some people, but that's fine. I've lost people before because, you know, I'm an opinionated bitch. Everybody knows that by now. So there.
Well, you got one life to live, okay? So...
Yeah.
Unless you believe in reincarnation. But you'll come back as an animal. And animals don't talk.
No, but they purr and they meow.
It's true.
I'm a big cat person too.
Me too.
Yay.
Okay.
All right. Well, Flo, do you want to tell people where they can find you on the internets?
Yes, you can find me at florenceion.com. That's my website. I am on Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat at @OThatFlow without the W. And I have a new podcast coming out actually called Honestly Tech. It is geared more toward the not so gadgety types, but the idea is just interviews with really interesting people who are doing interesting things with tech that maybe you haven't considered. So I'm awaiting Apple and Google podcast approval right now. So literally beginning stages, but look out for that if anybody is curious or interested.
Oh yeah, congrats. Yeah, and of course, you're still doing some AAA from time to time?
Yes, I have my other two podcasts, All About Android on Twit every Tuesday, and then the Material Podcast on the Relay FM network, which posts between Thursday and Friday, depending on my schedule with Andy.
And despite all that, you managed to find time to do a podcast with me this week. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, Miriam. Of course. I will always make time for you.
Oh,
so
thanks so much. You all know where to find me, folks. I'm at Tankgirl on Twitter and Instagram. That's TNKGRL, like the comic book character, but drop the vowels. And you know that this channel is not just in a vacuum. And I want to reiterate this. I've said it on the show before, but I really need your support out there. Like, this is a hobby at this point in terms of revenue for me. I cannot survive and I need your help. So what you can do is support us by going to our sponsor, which is audible.com. The other thing you can do is go to my blog, tankgirl.com, TNKGRL.com. That blog has a bunch of deals on good phones you can buy through Amazon and you can buy through GearBest. And if you buy them through them, I get some of that. So it supports the show. So I know this is just a podcast you're listening to, but please go to the blog as well. Support me by buying some of these phones or accessories or whatever through the affiliate links. And importantly as well, watch the videos on YouTube. There's an entire YouTube channel with videos that are visual complement to the show. And to go to that channel, it's youtube.com/Miriam Jouar, my full name spelled out without a space. If you don't know how to spell my name, go to Twitter. It's up there, Miriam Jouar. remove the space in between, put that at the end of youtube.com, and you get yourself a YouTube channel. Subscribe, talk to me in the comments, hit that little bell icon, all that good stuff. Like the videos, tell your friends, spread the word, okay? That channel has been around since 2010, and, it brings me some revenue as well, so I need your support. Don't forget the YouTube channel. Don't forget the actual blog, in addition to the podcast. I really appreciate it. Spread the word. If you just want to comment about the podcast right here, just go to Twitter. Talk to me on Twitter @TankGirl. And then finally, mobiletechpodcast.com is URL for the show. If you are using an old school RSS reader for your podcasting, that's where you'll find the URL for the RSS feed. But we're on all the platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Overcast, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, everywhere. Just subscribe, okay? I said audible.com is our sponsor, and they have been for a long time. And I want to thank them because they've been along for 2.5 years now, helping us out. So again, if you want to support the show, go to Audible and check it out. I've got a link for you. It's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. That's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. It's also in the show notes. Here's the deal. If you don't use Audible and you're trying to maybe read books, but you can't because you're constantly busy and you can't put your eyes on paper, maybe consider listening to a book, because that's what Audible does. It's an audiobook platform, and it's the best audiobook platform. So they have tons of choice, tons of selection. A lot of the books are read by the authors. I recently listened to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, a really great book. I'd read it years ago, but it's so nice to listen to it again. So if you go through that link, audibletrial.com/mobiletech, you can get 30-day free trial, and you get to keep one of the books, even if you don't continue after that. And it does support the podcast, whether you stay or not. So please consider it. I would thank you for that, and I appreciate you all. Thanks, Flo, for being on the show again.
Thank you, Miriam.
Yeah, we'll have you on again. We'll hopefully have something a little less heavy to deal with this next time. Yeah. But anyway, stay tuned. I'll have a show next week and another guest. And until then, cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.